Yeah, Marjorie Taylor Greene, handshake Tucker, most deranged fucked up shit you've ever seen. Marjorie Taylor Greene just announced a bill that gender affirming care for trans teens is a Class C felony nationally. That's what she's going to go for. It's not going to work, by the way. Tucker Carlson says he will pressure every Republican to join. It has no chance of passing the next 2 years, but this is their plan if they win in 2024. Great. I will also add Tucker Carlson continued the stochastic terrorism campaign against Boston Children's Hospital on a segment. The bill would give 25-year prison sentences for gender affirming care. They're literally doing the abortion thing to a T to trans people. But because it's trans people, it's going to have less defenders, I guess. Yeah, I will never look at another Sam Harris video for a while. Okay, don't worry. Okay, let's see. Tucker Carlson also is back, and he's demanding that Republicans center the midterm campaign's message around the white supremacist great replacement theory.
If inflation were the salient issue here, the generational...
How many people called that this was coming next? Dude, I've been saying this for years, okay? Every time someone brought up, like, trans people playing in, athletic competitions is wrong. I don't care about them, but I just think that that's unequal and unjustifiable. Every single time that conversation came up, I told them, that's not the main conversation. The real conversation is about trans people not existing. That's always going to happen. That's always going to happen. They're going to try to fucking push for that. They're going to try to push for that. And then also, they're going to push for gay people not existing in society either. They're going to say gay people are groomers. Gay people are trying to turn your children gay. And if the trans thing passes, which I hope it doesn't, but if the trans thing passes, next up is gay people on the chopping block. Straight up.
Issue of this campaign season. But it's not. Inflation's terrible. It's making people poorer. We actually could tank the US dollar. These are all big, big problems. But changing the population of the United States, allowing people to be murdered in the street, letting drug addicts live...
By the way, new Ipsos poll showed that 60% of Americans believe that there is an invasion happening in the southern border. That's a wonderful fact that I must add here while talking about Tucker Carlson's great replacement theory rhetoric. Tucker Carlson knows how to read the room very well. He's a really good propagandizer of racial agitation, racial agitprop. And for that reason, he's probably going to ramp up the great replacement rhetoric a lot more aggressively now that he knows that 60% of Americans believe that there's an invasion happening in the southern border. 60% of Americans. 60% of Americans.
On the sidewalk and sending them crack pipes? That will change everything forever. These are offenses against the most basic rules of any civilization. And the most basic of all is you reward people for doing the right thing and you penalize them for doing the wrong thing. If you start doing the opposite, then everything falls apart. And everybody knows that. So why not just say it? Why not just say that? Don't be embarrassed. Just say that. If inflation...
If inflation... That's from today. A majority of Americans see an invasion at the southern border. NPR poll finds invasion rhetoric is resonating with many Americans. Completely true or somewhat true. Majority of Americans say there is an invasion at the southern border. Overall, it is 28% that say completely true, 25% that say somewhat true. Okay. Amongst Democrats, 12% of Democrats say there's a southern border invasion. They say completely true. 29% of Democrats say that it's somewhat true that there's an invasion at the southern border. 51% of Republicans say that it's completely true that there is an invasion happening in the southern border. 25% of Republicans say it's somewhat true that there is an invasion happening at the southern border. They polled 1,000 people. That is an adequate number of people to poll. What the fuck is wrong with you? That is literally a decent sample size. Shut the fuck up. Why do people constantly and consistently say that 1,000 people being polled is not valid when it quite literally is a valid sample size? What, you think these guys that literally do at Ipsos, you think the motherfuckers at Ipsos don't know what the adequate sample size is? People think a poll has to poll like 330 million people or else it's just not adequate. They need to poll 100% of Americans. Anyway. Megaphonics, do you think this is a good time to talk about Dodge's new Banshee electric charger concept that abides by my wishes and interests? Ask yourself that. I know Dodge is coming out with a new charger and it's going to be loud and it looks like an old school Dodge Charger. I know you've been like vying. You're like really excited to show me that. And I saw it already. But do you think it's a good time when I'm talking about how like Americans are screaming white supremacist bloody murder at the prospect of, seeing an immigrant person exist comfortably around them? Come on, bro. Anyway. So Tucker Carlson's doing that. Here is the Trump losing Alex Jones take.
Support him a few years ago, even though I disagreed with his warp speed, because I thought that we had to keep him in office because of the nightmare scenario if Hillary or Biden got in, back before they were officially running. But that said, I am supporting DeSantis. DeSantis is just gone from being awesome to being unbelievably good. And I don't just watch a man's actions, as Christ said, judge a tree by its fruits. I can also look in his eyes on HD video, and I see the real sincerity. Pig-headedly support him a few years ago, even though I disagreed with his warp speed, because I thought that we had.
That's right. He said, Donald Trump's smelling a lot like sulfur to me. He's smelling a lot more like sulfur than he did before, okay? Dude, there was so much more that I wanted to cover today that I'm not going to be able to get to. Like, we got the Supreme Court declares war on the environment. We got America's coming to its Weimar moment. Josh Dubin explains, Joe, why Ron DeSantis is a complete piece of shit. All right, let's watch this. Okay. This is going to be good.
And we just have to be willing to step out of this tribal mentality, all right? You look at a guy like Ron DeSantis, all right? Everyone's has their back up already. Ron DeSantis, all right?
I'll be back.
What he did in Orlando was so fucking mind-blowing. Was it in Orlando that he did this? No, in Hillsborough County in Tampa. He goes and removes this really terrific guy, right? Who, whether you like him or not, let's not call him a terrific guy. He goes and removes a prosecutor, an elected official, on the hypothetical that if a state law passes, that this guy won't enforce it. All right.
Hypothetical. Is this from a statement?
This is a hypothetical because the guy signed a letter along with a bunch of other state and district attorneys saying if you pass an abortion law, I don't think it's a good use of our resources to prosecute people that might be the victims of rape, who were doctors who are trying to help the victims of rape. I think it clogs up the system, and they had their rationale for it. But there had never been a case brought before him yet. Now, why did Ron DeSantis do that, in my opinion? He did that because he knows abortion is a hot button issue. And if he goes down there and removes this guy, he becomes a hero for it. Here's the hypocrisy in that. This has nothing to do with politics. This has to do with the right thing. Watch this. This should fucking freak everybody out. Imagine this. In Florida, marijuana is still illegal. I want to get it right so I'll tell you what statute it's in the Florida statute.
It's very illegal.
The statute criminalizing weed in Florida is section 893.03. It's a controlled substance in Florida. There are a lot of states where it's still a controlled substance, but it's been decriminalized. Florida's not one of them. In Orlando said, you know what? We're going to decriminalize it. Here's how we're going to do it. We're going to make it like a traffic ticket. There's a sticky problem there, though, because there's a state law, section 893, .03 that makes it illegal. So they passed a county ordinance. They got the city council together and they passed a county ordinance, and they said by a 4-3 vote,
4-3.
we are not going to prosecute according to state law. We're going to prosecute according to this county ordinance. If Ron DeSantis gave a shit about state attorneys not prosecuting crimes, don't you think he would have been right there and said, what the fuck is this? You're not prosecuting according to state law? You're not fit to be a state attorney. I'm pulling you out of office. That's the first thing he would have done. He didn't do that. They actually created a way to circumvent state law and did it. This is not a hypothetical. Why did he do that? Why didn't he do that? Because he doesn't give a fuck about, this is not about the issue.
Well, also probably because it's politically popular.
Abortion is politically popular, so he knows he's going to make himself. So whether you're a quote unquote Republican, a Democrat, a libertarian, if you don't look at that fact and say, there's something really wrong there, something wrong. I don't care about anything else involving this man. That in and of itself smacks of fascism. When you go grab an elected official by the scruff of their neck and yank them out of an elected position, that doesn't horrify you? I mean, but when it comes to weed, it's illegal in the state of Florida. You sort of did an end around here to get around the law, but I'm going to leave that state attorney alone. There's no answer to that. I have met this man before. He threw a tissy fit over the fact that I was wearing a mask at the height of the pandemic because my son has type 1 diabetes, and it wasn't known yet whether I could get it, pass it to him, and instead of meeting with me, turned his back on me and walked out. He cancels clemency routinely in Florida. That should bother people, that people like Derek, who just want a hearing, just hear me. You cancel the fucking clemency? You cancel the entire hearing so people's cases can't get heard. And until we're willing to step out of this...
Why do you think he does that?
Because you would have to ask him. But the question is, why are we tolerating it? Why are we putting up with it? Why are we saying that that's okay? Why? Because it's a tribal mentality. And until people are willing to sort of step away and say, you know what? I don't like what this individual does. I'm not going to vote for him. I'm not going to vote that person into power. There are judges that get elected in the state of Florida, some that have ruined the lives of my clients. And they continually get elected because we vote along party lines instead of using our minds.
Rogan and Babylon B argue, discuss how ethical capitalism can be achieved through Christianity. No, I don't care about that. How is DeSantis popular? DeSantis rides the wave of anger and resentment and frustration that the Republican Party has broadly relied on for as long as it's existed. And pretty much that's it. That's how he's popular, That's how he does it. That's how he's been doing it, and that's how he'll continue to do it. He basically just does Trump shit. He knows Trump is popular, and he was like, I'll just copy it. Yeah, he's good at virtue signaling to the base. Kennedy's trying to make Senator Oz happen. Bless his heart. Far left Fetterman has a history of supporting legalized drug dens and reimagining policing. Yeah, problem is Oz is very unlikable. We'll see. Rogan's guest is a Innocence Project guy. I'm not going to do the mass shooting in Detroit or in Denver, today.